Hello, great ones. Welcome to the relaunching of my YouTube channel. I just completed season 1 during the whole pandemic of the Living Me Great podcast, and I am transferring all the episodes over to my YouTube so that my new YouTube audience gets a dose of what my content is about. Please like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy the show. Hello, great ones. Welcome to the Live and Be Great podcast. I'm your host, Latonya Sampson-McDonald. I am a life coach and a registered marriage and family therapist associate. And this podcast was created to motivate, educate, and inspire all to live and be great. On today's episode, I want to provide emotional education on what Black people are experiencing, expressing, and feeling right now during this time. Like I said before on previous episodes, I am a firm believer in education and how education is the gateway for change. Because when you understand, when you know better, you are obligated to do better. I want to warn you right now, because this is an emotional topic for me, which the past few episodes have been a bit emotional, but this one is definitely heavy. This might turn into a little rant, but I promise you, regardless of the fact, because I am a Black woman and I have experienced racism, that is what has plagued this country. That is what Black people are tired of and what all people should be tired of. You will still get some education. The best education does come from experience and real life stories. And I applaud you for clicking on this episode and getting the education and even validation from me explaining what Black people, we as Black people, are experiencing right now. A lot of us, I should say, are experiencing right now. So I'm probably just going to be all over the place, but however it comes to my spirit, I'm just going to talk about it because it's necessary. So what people are seeing in the media as far as protest and the injustice against Black people. What we are seeing, we're seeing protests, peaceful protests, and I say that with my quotation fingers. We're seeing riots. I'm saying that with my quotation fingers, and I'll explain why. The amount of trauma that Black people have endured since they came, I can't even say they came, since they were stolen and brought to America, captured and enslaved. Nothing you see in the news right now can amount to the type of pain. None of it, you're not even seeing, I would say, 0.2% of what you should be seeing based off the pain that Black people have endured. Black people are showing a lot of restraint, believe it or not. And you got two sides. One side says peaceful protest. Another side says, no, we're going to burn some stuff down and we're gonna loot some things. Whatever the case may be. And I want to provide you understanding for those sides. Yes, Peaceful is what is safe. Peaceful can be what gets the message across, what is palatable for the opposing side. Because in this country, there is a quote unquote way to do things, supposedly. But sometimes the way of doing things the proper way, it doesn't fit I would say, the crime, or it doesn't match the energy of what is deserved. Sometimes when you approach things peacefully, people may think that, okay, all I have to do is listen, then I don't have to do anything. Or they're approaching me in a peaceful way, so that doesn't mean I'm a bad person or I've contributed to this pain. And there's nothing wrong with people approaching things peacefully. I believe education is peaceful. But when it comes to the rioting, what you are seeing is pain, frustration, and anguish. Because America has shown over the years that it values money, big corporations, materials, and even animals in a lot of cases more than they do black bodies. And black children have to be taught that for a very young age, and that is repeated to them, that they will forever be treated as less than because of the color of their skin. And this is something we can't rub off, we can't cut off, we can't turn off a switch and be something else so we don't experience that. No, black people have to train their children to survive despite that. But honestly, if you really look at it, let's educate ourselves. What you're saying is, from birth, I feel human. To me, I look human, right? I have blood, bones. Same thing I feel like every other human does. But because of my color hue, because of my racial identity, I will be treated as less than human for the rest of my life. And in most cases, there's nothing that I can do about that pain. There is no book that we have, and I'm a therapist, okay? There's no book, there's no guide, there's no blueprint on how we are supposed to teach our children to dismiss that pain, because it has to go somewhere. And I tell my clients, no matter what age they are, that you are not just carrying your pain. Pain transcends into DNA, and it's passed on from generation to generation to generation. Yes, there are ways of coping. There are ways of healing certain things like abuse, disrespect, any diseases. There's a way to try to break that cycle. But when it comes to this overwhelming, continuous pain of just being black, wherever you are, because it's not just an American issue, okay? Let's not ignore that. But today we're talking about what's happening in the country of America. It's not just that issue, right? It's not just there. But there's just no way of dismissing that. And honestly, I don't think that we should dismiss it. You can, because what you're seeing right now is just a 0.2% of the children, black people, tired of having to dismiss that feeling, tired of having to make ourselves small because I'm already convicted of a crime based on the color of my skin. Every single time that there is a black person that is brutalized by the police, or a hate crime is committed, or the cops are called on them by a stranger, most of the time, the unarmed, they could be students, they could be coming from the store, they could be sleeping in their own house. But you feel like, because there's such a big threat the way they portray us in the media, because a lot of people have never even met a black person and have these preconceived notions about who we are without giving us the benefit of the doubt or doing their own research to talk to one of us. Their mind is already made up that this is who you are based off of what you're fed. America feeds that image about black people being dangerous and inhumane. They're not gonna come out and just say it. Sometimes they will, but the inhumane part is the truth. That's how we're treated. There is nothing, absolutely nothing out there that gives parents a guide on how they're supposed to cope with that. Because what people are missing is that a human being, because they're a human being, should never be treated as less than. Period. Regardless of where they come from or what they look like or what race they are. It shouldn't be happening in the first place. Forget, what did the person do to get shot? Forget that. No one deserves to be treated as less than human. And that is what you're seeing. So, looting, honestly, that should not be your concern. Change should be your concern, because there's no amount of stuff in a store, there's no amount of money you can pay or that you've lost that can be used to repay black people for their pain when this country was built on our backs. I want to tell you about an experience I had while attending my master's program at a university. As you know, I have a master's in counseling clinical psychology, a MS, Master of Science. So around the time I was in school, there were a lot of traumatic events. I was in school when Trump became president. I was in the school during the Pulse nightclub shooting. You can kind of guess what year that was. I would say 2015 through 2018. For those of you who don't know, let me backtrack. PWI stands for Private White Institution. Not only was it a private white institution, it was also a Catholic private white institution. Okay? And, I came from, before that, my undergrad was at an HBCU. HBCU stands for Historically Black College and University. So tensions were high. There were march after march, protest after protest, riot after riot going on during that time. Also during this time, the shooting deaths of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling had occurred. So I am going to school to become a therapist. So I'm in class with other future therapists. I am also being taught by a practicing therapist in all my classes. I remember I had a presentation to do where I had to role play with a class partner. The assignment was to take turns being client versus therapist. And I remember all these different events occurring. And, I think Trump became president after those shootings. But I know the Pulse Night shooting had happened, and people were afraid about immigration policy. So, you know what? This may have happened. I don't know. It was just all a blur because it all was traumatic in different ways for different types of people, if not all people, with these events. But anyway, I remember feeling so heavy and wanting to just break down because I reached my breaking point. I had become tired. I barely even wanted to get out of bed during that time. But I had a presentation, and as I was walking onto campus ground, it took everything in me not to fall apart. And one of the reasons I was about to fall apart is not only because of the trauma and the pain I was experiencing from watching these black people getting shot down with no defense. I had realized that I was holding back breaking down because I am headed to a classroom, being the only black person in the classroom, having to compose myself even though I am uncomfortable in my own skin right now because of what has been going on and the pain that I'm feeling. Even then, I had been taught because of what I looked like, who I was, what my race was, that I could not show that, and that it was my duty to basically protect people from me, from viewing me as angry and as dangerous. They already may see it because of my skin complexion without me even know it. Knowing it, they may already feel like that. But I didn't want to make my classmates uncomfortable. That was so painful for me because I should not have to. Everybody sees what's going on in the news. You see what's happening to us. Why should I have to compose myself? And the environment that I was in aided in that dismissal of who I was and what I was experiencing as a black woman during that time. Even going into a classroom full of future therapists, going into a classroom with a therapist as the teacher. Nobody, even when I got there, nobody thought to check on me but one of my friends. And he is literally my only white friend that I have. The only one that after my presentation asked me, was I okay? And I appreciated that. But to think, had he not been in that class, no one would have thought to ask me that. Not even that. I told you that I was in school around the time that Trump became president and people were worried about immigration. And I was in school during the Pulse nightclub shooting. Okay? Marches, protests during all of that. my school sent out prayers for the LGBTQ community. My teacher stopped class because Lady Gaga was performing downtown during the protest to support the Pulse nightclub shooting, and said, if you need to go march, I understand. There were resources sent out about immigration for people who were immigrants and who needed help, if you needed counseling, if you needed prayer. But my school, knowing that they did have a minority population, but they had Black students there, didn't think to ask any of us, were we okay? It's as if people have this unconscious and sometimes conscious belief that maybe we're used to it. Maybe we're used to trauma and death, and a lot of us are. But should we be used to deeming it as a crime? Should we be used to our feelings being dismissed? Should we be used to constantly being judged by the color of our skin? Is that something we should be used to? If I have a client that has been repeatedly raped, am I supposed to dismiss that, hey, maybe the rape happened for a third or fourth time? Oh, she should be used to it, or he should be used to it? No, it is a crime and you should never be used to it. But that is the atmosphere that plagues America. And a lot of people don't even realize that we were doing it. And yes, once I was aware, I went and talked to who I needed to talk to. And we started making moves and doing what we could do to make sure Black people's pain on that campus got acknowledged. But I promise you, it was so disheartening, because it was a disgrace to me that people were in a profession of therapist that did not think, dismissed, didn't even acknowledge a whole set of people that are experiencing racism in front of your faces. You can acknowledge all these other things, but you could not acknowledge me. I have experienced racism my entire life at 34 years old. Sometimes, some stories, I even have to look back, because the different moving pieces that involve racism, that program us in how we move and how we think, and these categories that the world has placed us in based on class, race, gender, religion, to categorize us. It's like, oh, we have to step on somebody to be great. We only focus on ourselves. It's a dog eat dog world. And because I don't experience it, it has nothing to do with me. I don't have to feel or take in that emotion. That is privilege. That is privilege. And it's the wrong way. A lot of people have died over that way. A lot of people have been dismissed and forgotten because of this way, because of racism. There's people, look, you might even meet Black people that say they've never experienced racism. And that was normalization, the normalization of the treatment of black people does to you. That might be true based off of their perception. Because honestly, I didn't realize that I had experienced racism my whole entire life until I turned 30. And I really got the education that I needed. One of my earliest experiences with racism is in the first or second grade. Is it first or second grade? No, the third grade, when I was in class and I had a teacher. She was a white woman. I was in private school, but the private school, there were more people of color there, I would say, because of the neighborhood. And it was also a Catholic school. And my teacher, like I said, she was a white woman, young white woman, beautiful. I thought she looked like Madonna. I thought she was so beautiful. I remember there was a pencil taken from her desk. And she stormed in the classroom, looked at her desk, and saw that the pencil was gone. I didn't take the pencil. But she charged at me, grabbed my face, and told me that that pencil better be on her desk by the time she gets back into school, into her classroom, or I was going to be in serious trouble. She grabbed my face so hard that I bled in my cheeks. And I cried. But I didn't take that pencil. So here it is, this teacher. And I'm the darkest one in the class. Not even asking me, giving me a chance to say that I didn't take it. Immediately coming at me. And this is my favorite teacher, because I'm just, she's so beautiful, so nice. That day she wasn't. I had another experience in the 5th grade with another white teacher. And, I was loud in the class. I was always making jokes. And one day she got tired. But instead of pulling me to the side and, Tanya, what's wrong? Why you always acting up? I need you to be quiet, or whatever the case may be. Why are you laughing so loud, or whatever? You're disrupting the class. She asked me to come outside. She grabbed me and slammed me up against the wall. It was the same height at the time. But I was only in the 5th grade. And this was a grown woman. Took me and slammed me up against the wall and grabbed my collar and threatened me. No one did anything about it. Normalized. I was not a child to these people anymore that thought that they can just rough me up, grab me, and teach me a lesson. No innocence for me. That was gone. Black children, I don't even know what age we stop being kids and innocent to America. What age do we stop being, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed? What age do we have to start paying for crimes? What age do we experience such hard judgment? Too early, too soon. And those things I normalized. Why? Because society normalized it for me. Hearing it back, you probably hearing it now. Oh, that should have never happened to you. But nobody cared back then. I didn't even know that I should care back then. I thought this is the way I'm supposed to be treated. Because that's the way people who were supposed to be protecting me treated me. The people that were supposed to be teaching me and educating me treated me. And my whole entire life, except for when I went to get my master's, I had been in predominantly people of color, black schools. And these are people that are coming in to the community and still having these biases against Black children and not even realizing the damage you are doing. You're helping them normalize the dismissal of who they are. For you to say, I do not see color, is for you to dismiss my whole entire experience. Because in this world, on the news, in the media, my color carries a whole lot of judgment, a whole lot of pain, a whole lot of weight on me based off of something I have no control over. How do we cope with that? If you have the answer, let me know. Email me at liveandbegreat@gmail.com. Please. Because even as a therapist, I don't have the answer. All I can do is educate you and hope that you do your part in changing and standing up for what is right, standing up for a fellow human being. Forget fellow Black person. We got to start treating Black people like human beings. Start. Make America great again. What do you mean make America great again? America was never great for Black people. I don't care how much money you got. I don't care about the height of celebrity Black people attain. Regardless of that, nothing that we are experiencing today can pay us for the pain that we have endured our entire lives, our entire existence in America. In America, nothing. How we cope, I have no idea. But what can give us hope is these marches, is people that don't look like us haven't experienced what we have been experiencing. Stand up, educate themselves, and declare it wrong. Check on us, validate us. That's what you can do. If you're listening, validate that experience. Don't ignore us. Because the moment you do, your silence is violence. When it comes to educating people on racism and the Black experience, I want to get people to the point, one person to the point, period. Let's just put it that way. To not ask what we did to get killed. I've done my job. I've seen videos of white men with a gun just finished killing people, eating their faces, get taken to Burger King, given some water, and handcuffed, put in the back of the car, and, you stand trial. And they say that's humane. Right? And we've seen Black people with their hands up, no weapon, get gunned down. We've seen Black people sleep in their bed. Police burst in and they end up dead when they've committed no crime. We've seen a Black homeless woman, no weapon, a police officer repeatedly beating her in her face. Male police officer. We've seen riots and looters, right? Protest over Black lives. And we've seen looters and riots, white people, upset because they lost a hockey game. Sometimes they do it when they won the hockey game. And not see the same type of violence or treatment. I don't know what else to do if you can't see that. Stop criminalizing the victims. Stop making them the cause of their own death. They did not choose their color. None of us chose to be here. We didn't have a say-so in our birth. None of us as human beings did it. None of us. We didn't have a say-so in our color, our gender. We didn't have a say-so. I need people to understand the weight of that. Land of the free. Not free for me. Home of the brave. So brave enough to take a land that isn't even yours in the first place. I won't even elaborate on that. If you've been listening, if you've been doing your research, you'll understand what I'm saying. If you are not a black person and you've made it to this portion of the podcast, I'm telling you now, it's a step in the right direction. Whether you agree or disagree, it is. It's a step in the right direction to educate yourself. We should not have to educate you. You should seek it. People say, oh, we're tired of hearing about slavery. Get over it. Well, black people are tired of experiencing racism. They are. It's still happening. Overtired. Our ancestors are tired. And payment is overdue. If you still don't get it, let's look at it from this perspective. There's a pandemic right now. COVID-19. You just seen protesters protesting because they didn't want to wear a mask. They didn't want to wear a mask that would protect them. They want to go back to work. People can understand that. Did you hear anything about people dying by police brutality during those protests? Did you hear about thousands, hundreds of people being arrested because of that protest? That protest was right before this one. And if you look on the news, you see some of those protesters had guns in police officers' faces. No National Guard was called. But when people stand up for an injustice of people, black people being killed without being able to stand trial, just doing everyday things, like, you should understand the discrepancy there. You should. If not, you have to do more research. Could also think about it this way. Several politicians and celebrities and whoever you listen to, one of them, if not all of them, have spoke about the disparities and what is happening with black people during COVID-19 and how we are even experiencing racism and discrimination based off of having health insurance, not having health insurance, dying at a higher rate than our counterparts when we're a minority. So you mean to tell me I have to deal with racism in the hospital based off of a disease, a sickness that everybody's catching, still get treated as less than? And during that time, I gotta watch my people being gunned down in the streets? An extra battle? Well, hey, it's not like black people aren't used to fighting multiple battles, right? I gotta fight poverty and fight racism. Or should I say, and be black. I gotta fight depression and be black. I gotta fight sexism and be black. I gotta fight classism and be black. I have to fight disease and be black. We're always fighting more than one battle than people who are not black are. It's not fair. It isn't right. And it is everyone's duty to notice it and do better. In previous podcast, I brought up the talk. Okay? It's the talk that all Black parents have to give to their children. That they have to work harder, be 10 times as better than our counterparts, 10 times better than our counterparts, to get half as much of what they're going to get, based off of the characteristic none of us can change, which is the color of our skin. To never have to give your child that talk, to never have to have heard that talk been given to you by your parents, is a privilege in itself. Most kids worry about when snack time is at such an early age. Our parents and our kids have to worry about making it home. My duty is to try to make this as relatable, as understandable as possible. You know, they say, don't burn down your own house. Listen, you may not agree with how the anger is displayed, but you have to understand why it's there. You have to. That's how we get change. The number one human desire is to be understood. Number one human fear is to be misunderstood. So, back to the phrase, don't burn down your own house. America is your own house. Okay, great. No, it's not. Not for Black people. You may think so. Oh, you live here. If you got a problem, go back to Africa. No, we built this country. For what? Why should we leave? Okay, but that's another topic of discussion. Okay, it's definitely another topic. But relatable is what I want people to understand. The emotional intelligence is where I'm trying to get people to. Okay? So, don't burn down your own house. You burn down your own house when you cheat on your spouse. You burn down your own house when you dismiss your loved one's emotions. You burn down your own house when you don't pay attention to your health. You burn down your own house when you allow racism to exist and you do nothing. So if you have played a role in that, and you can see where I'm going, because there's so many other examples that I can give, you can understand. Because a lot of that, it comes from unresolved trauma. It comes from unresolved emotions. Black people have never been resolved of what has happened. Yes, we want steps in the right direction. We want people to educate themselves. We want people to understand our side. Okay? That's fine. We want people to say, no, this is wrong. This should not happen. We want that, but it's way more to it. And it's going to take a lot more effort from people outside of Black people to correct it, because nobody wants their child to come into this world and have to go through the pain that Black people have endured. Nobody, whether you Black or not, because it's a lot. Once you realize how much it is, it is too much. And you have to ask yourself, how do we even survive it? We survive it because the world has taught us to dismiss these emotions. So when you see the little bit of it, be grateful, because there's so much more you could be seeing. There is so much more that is deserving of this pain that we have carried. I don't know if I've said enough today. I don't know if I've said too much today, but I hope it does something to whoever's listening. I really do. I hope it does something and it affects you in a positive way, and it motivates you to create change your way. You can create change by protesting. You can create change by voting. You can create change by sharing information to your counterparts. You can create change by not allowing even the most subtle form of racism to exist in your space without you calling it out. You can donate to our causes. You can help reshape America's view of what beautiful is. You can do your little part by educating yourself. A small part. Even though we deserve a great one, but not one person, unfortunately, can take on all that it's going to take to repair this destruction, this tragedy against Black people that is ongoing. But there's things you can do. You can choose to never ignore this again. Because I don't know, usually with marches, they last for a little bit, maybe through the trial, and that's it. Sometimes we see a conviction, sometimes we don't. When it's blatant, it's right there. The only thing that's new is these cameras, right? The cameras, it's a reflection of America, what's on that tape, that you can see it happen and still act like you didn't see it. Act like we don't already know what the judgment should be. Murder. Speak out. However you can. Whether it's on social media or to your friend that doesn't get it. Speak out. Do something. Do your part, whatever that is, as long as you're doing something. Stop trying to police how we act and how we respond. America don't have right over that no more. You just don't. You've lost that. There has been too much done. Too much done to us as a people for you to still feel like you have license all over how we should respond to this demise. You can choose to peacefully protest. You can choose to riot. Both should understand each other. You should understand both sides. You don't have to act in both sides, but understand that both sides are valid. I hope you got something, again, out of this podcast, and I'll continue to speak out, until we see change. I'm going to do my part. I still want to be motivational and inspirational, but I can't be truthful. I can't do my job and inspire the masses if I'm not true in who I am as a person and what I need for healing. I can't dismiss myself any longer. I will not carry that. Thank you for listening. Give yourself permission to live and be great. The Live and Be Great podcast will be airing every other Friday. If you have truly enjoyed this podcast, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving Live and Be Great a chance. Please feel free to share, give a review, subscribe on whichever platform that you're listening to right now, on iTunes or Apple Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, as well as Google Play. The Live and Be Great podcast is strictly crowdfunded, so if you are interested in becoming a supporter, you can click the link in the description, or you can go to liveandbegreat.com and scroll to the bottom and donate to the Live and Be Great podcast today, so I can continue to give you good and motivational content. Thank you all for listening, and don't forget to give yourself permission to live and be great. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for tuning into my YouTube channel, Live and Be Great. This channel will produce content that is both podcast and on-screen style. So if you're interested and you enjoyed today's show, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. See you soon.